Today I'm going to be discussing the recent ruling of the Supreme Court in the case of Union of India versus Dilip Paul. In this case, a woman employee working as a field assistant filed a sexual harassment complaint in 2011 against Dilip Paul, who at that time was working as the local head of office of the Service Selection Board in Rangaiya, state of Assam. The woman employee alleged that Dilip Paul had sexually harassed her by making phone calls to her at night, visiting her house when her husband was away, making her sit for long hours in his office, and making sexually colored remarks. To inquire into the sexual harassment allegations, a Central Complaints Committee (CCC) was set up in 2012 under the Central Civil Services Rules. During the inquiry, Dilip Paul denied that he had sexually harassed the woman. Based on the inquiry and the oral testimony of witnesses, the CCC concluded that Dilip Paul was guilty of sexual harassment. In the meantime, Dilip Paul retired from service. Accordingly, the Ministry of Home Affairs imposed a penalty of withholding 50% of Dilip Paul's monthly pension on permanent basis. Dilip Paul challenged the MHA's penalty order before the Central Administrative Tribunal Guwahati, which dismissed his application. Dilip Paul then appealed to the Guwahati High Court, which ruled in his favor. The central government subsequently appealed against the High Court order before the Supreme Court. Two key legal issues came up before the Supreme Court. Firstly, whether the CCC may directly cross-examine witnesses during disciplinary proceedings in sexual harassment complaints, similar to the role of a prosecutor. The Supreme Court found that the redressal mechanism for sexual harassment complaints envisages that the Complaints Committee may put questions directly to the witnesses unless a specific case of bias is made out against the committee members. The second important finding by the Supreme Court was that courts may not interfere in the decisions of the inquiry committee unless the findings are based on no evidence or the decision of the inquiry committee is unreasonable. Further, the rules of evidence under Indian Evidence Act are not applicable to disciplinary proceedings. This means that the sexual harassment allegations do not have to be proved beyond reasonable doubt. Instead, the decision should be in favor of the party which produces more convincing evidence than the other party. The Supreme Court ruled in favor of the government after finding that the findings of the CCC were supported by the oral testimony of witnesses. Union of India versus Dilip Paul is a landmark judgment because it establishes the standard of proof for complaints committees which inquire into sexual harassment cases. To deep dive into the nitty-gritties of the case, do read our article on Women and Justice.